A Saturday evening, a racetrack carved into a German forest. 440 cars, 60 circuits of the most dangerous road in motorsport. And then, turn 26. 7 cars. One driver who never made it back. They call it the Green Hell for a reason. But today, that nickname stopped feeling like poetry. How does a race, in just 4 laps, become the scene of the first Nordschleife fatality in 13 years? And what does it say about the sport that the rest of the grid returned to the paddock, cleaned up, and prepared to do it all again tomorrow? The NLS4 race 1 of the ADAC 24H Nürburgring Qualifiers, kicked off at 17:30 local time. Hundreds of cars, dozens of classes, all funneled into the same 25 kilometers of tarmac, camber changes, and compression. At the start, Team Verstappen Racing's number 3 Mercedes dropped to P10, with Lucas Auer picking his way through traffic as the field spread around the Grand Prix circuit. By the time they hit the Nordschleife proper, he'd climbed back to P9, overtaking an Aston Martin, settling into a battle between 6th and 10th. Controlled, measured, exactly what you want in lap 1 of a race like this. Lap 3, a battle of the Mercedes. The number 3 tried for P8, couldn't make it stick, tucked back in, waited. But that was just the start. Because on lap 4, before the carousel, at a section of track called Klostertal, something spilled onto the circuit. Fluids, a car leaking from somewhere in the pack, at high speed, on a right-hander with a mid-turn change of camber. And what happened next changed everything. Red flags at the Nürburgring are rare, not uncommon, genuinely rare. You get red flags for extreme weather, for power failures, for something the organizers cannot simply manage with a safety car and a crane. When that red flag came out 25 minutes in, at 17:55, most assumed it would be temporary, a cleanup, a barrier repair. The cars stranded out on track, the broadcast going quiet, the familiar holding pattern of a racing weekend absorbing an incident.
But the cleanup took over an hour. Cars didn't return to the pits until long after 1900. Race control immediately halted the race to allow for extensive recovery and rescue operations. That phrase, rescue operations, is where the story gets dark, because a debris cleanup doesn't need rescue operations. People do. At 2000 local time, a press conference, and the news that the paddock had already begun to fear. Juha Miettinen, BMW 325i, car number 121, 66 years old, a Nürburgring veteran, a man who had driven these roads more times than most people drive to work. The official statement confirmed what no one wanted to confirm. Despite the immediate arrival of emergency services, the paramedics were unable to save the driver involved. The driver died in the medical center after all attempts at resuscitation proved unsuccessful. The other 6 drivers in the pileup taken to hospital, precautionary examinations, none in life-threatening condition. Just Juha. It was the first driver fatality during a race on the Nordschleife since Wolf Sylvester died here in June 2013. 13 years. And in a single Saturday evening, that record ended at a corner most of us have never heard of, caused by fluid nobody should have been leaking at a speed the track was never designed to forgive. The race will not resume. No result will be declared. The NLS4 classification, meaningless. For the drivers, the paddock, the families watching from the barriers, there is no good way to process this. One tribute summed it up simply. A regular at the NLS for years, he departed while living his passion, this sport so beautiful yet so dangerous. Another said, I've known Juha for 20 years. He was always there with a smile. Always. For the championship, for the event, NLS 5 goes ahead Sunday at 1300.
a minute's silence on the grid. Then they race again. Because that is what motorsport does. It grieves and it continues. It has to.
But the future risk is this. At a circuit where fluid on track at Klostertal can send 7 cars into each other in an instant, the question of how that fluid got there and whether it could have been prevented will not go away quietly. This wasn't just a race incident. It was a warning that the green hell still has teeth. Scenario 1. The investigation finds systemic failure. Fluid management protocols tighten across endurance racing globally. Juha's death changes the sport permanently, the way Senna's did. Scenario 2. Racing continues unchanged. The Sunday race runs, results are posted, the season moves on, and a 66-year-old man's name fades to a footnote in a safety briefing nobody reads twice. Scenario 3. The drivers themselves push back. The ones who were out there on lap 4, who saw the aftermath, who smelled the fluid, who drove past the wreckage, they ask the question the organizers haven't answered yet. Why was that car still on track? Which car leaked the fluids that ended Juha Miettinen's life? And when did the marshals first know? And as the rest of the field lines up Sunday morning, standing in 60 seconds of silence for a man who loved this place more than almost anyone, will any of them ask whether the green hell is asking too much? One thing is certain. This season's biggest story isn't about lap times or championships or politics in the paddock. It's about a sport staring at itself in the mirror and deciding what it sees. If you made it this far, you already know. The Nürburgring doesn't care about your career, your contract, or your constructor's points. It never did. So tell me, is the green hell still worth it? And who's asking the right questions in the paddock right now?